All right, welcome back, folks. Part two of investigations tonight. Uh, that's actually a good question. Can you hear me, Becca? Because if you can, then you don't need to refresh. Okay, good. All right. So as far as this is my honest opinion on how a team should be formed. You may start with 10 or 15 people like we did. Okay, we had a lot of people in the beginning. And now I think we're at a point now where I think everybody is being used to their best advantage. And I think we boiled it down because we're only like, I think, 5 or 6 of us now. Let's see, me. Yeah, there's like 5 or 6 of us, and everybody has their own thing, that they're great at. And, collectively, it makes us a better team overall. And for me, it's kind of like a two-edged sword because I'm the guy that has the vision of where I want this to go. I want big things for us, and big things are finally starting to happen. Slowly, mind you, but they are starting to happen. And also, because I can see them, I'm also uh, like the guy you want to give a camcorder to, because I have a better chance of possibly catching something on film. And, so I'm obviously the founder and the leader of the pack, if you will. And then, like I was saying before, Becca, it's not like a psychic thing per se, or like even like when I say she hears stuff, I mean like her just like the way her ears are tuned in, I guess, to that world. It allows her to hear things that a lot of the time the rest of us miss. I certainly don't hear them. In fact, because I can see them but can't hear them, I had to basically learn to read lips to communicate with them. A lot of the time, in my earlier days, and so very very different stuff. But so that's her spot on the team as EVP specialist. And like I was explaining before, Abby sees him too, kind of, but it's not better or worse than how I see him. It's just different because sees more like outlines. Really, I see more details. But because she sees outlines, she catches a lot of stuff on digital camera, and that's kind of her spot on the team. And her mom, Reagan, is kind of sensitive, and she's really good at communicating with, well, it's not a spirit box, but it kind of works the same way. She uses the Echo Box app, which any of Danny's apps from Big Bird Audio are the bomb, because he's actually an investigator himself, and he doesn't mess around. And she's really good at using that, so that's kind of her position on the team. And she's a sensitive too, so she picks up on things emotionally sometimes that we wouldn't catch on to. And then there's Nora, who is she's very interested in history, so that's kind of her thing. But also, without even ever having to tell her, she just kind of wanders off a lot of the time and kind of does her own thing. She's kind of fearless. She's like the person that like we could take to like some location and send her alone to the spookiest part of the whole place, and she'd be fine by herself. So that's kind of her position, and I think that when you're putting together a team, that's the stuff you need to look at. What's before we decide who's who, as far as their positions on the team, let's see what they're good at. And it sometimes takes a few investigations to get to know what people are good at. But if you're not attuned enough or observant enough as the leader of the team to know what people are good at, if you're not concerned enough with their opinions and views to actually be a good leader, then you probably shouldn't be leading a team. And I actually went through that myself, for like I was very hard-headed and very stubborn, and like, look, this is the way it is, that's the way it's going to be, period. And that was actually wrong of me. I shouldn't have been like that, but I learned from it. And see, you got to be able to learn from not only your mistakes, but from the things that you learn, that are there. You got to learn like different approaches to particular spirits, and the only way you can do that is by investigating. And so it took an investigation or two to figure out what people were good at. But once I started, figuring that stuff out, it was, cake. And Becca just asked me in chat, where is Nora? That's like a very common thing to hear during an investigation. Actually, is where'd she go? Because every she she's like a little kid on crack sometimes, because like it seems like we turn around and she's gone. But that's just her, and we use that to our advantage a lot of the time. Anyways, so finding out what people are good at, like what areas of investigating that they're like more attuned to, before you just label person A, our tech specialist, or person B, our lead investigator, is good shit to know. So I would personally tell anybody that is either newly forming a team or is thinking of forming a team to keep that in mind, because that's the shit you're gonna have to know your investigators, the people that you work with, and kind of do not only what's best for you but best for them, and therefore best for your entire team collectively. And that's why we're ghosts, well, paranormals, because like we're a pack, and yeah, I'm the alpha dog because I have the vision of where we're going and what we're going to be doing, and I have the idea about how big we're going to be, and all that. And it's like what drives us, forward, and we're always moving forward, and we have our setbacks like anybody else does, but that's just how it is. And so I think definitely, if you listen to nothing else tonight that I've said, I would say that if you're listening tonight and you're thinking about joining a team or starting a team, to keep that in mind. It's never a wrong thing to figure out what people are good at. Okay, on to like the setup. Hold on one sec. The first time It all depends also on what kind of equipment you're dealing with. Like we actually do have 8 infrared DVR cameras. We're not able to use them because our DVR no longer works. We need a new one that can, withhold 8 cameras. So, kind of a tall order. But we do have them, and okay, Jeremy just asked me a question in chat, and I'm going to answer that here in a little bit. Uh, so, hold on to your horses, so to speak. I'll get to that. But as far as setting up equipment goes, it depends on what you have, because not everybody can afford 8 DVR cameras. Not everybody can afford thermal or like a gazillion cameras and all this stuff. Like us, like we have 8 DVR cameras we can't use at the moment, and then I have a infrared camcorder and a full spectrum camcorder, and then a couple of illuminators, a Gauss Master, which is an EM field detection device, like a millimeter or K2. And then I have my digital recorder, and I have 3 apps on my phone that I use: the Ghostbox one, the Spirit Box one, and Spirit Voice. And that's pretty much it. And everybody, has like Abby, for example, has, I think, 1 or 2 digital still cameras, and then they have the phone apps and then digital recorder. And then Becky has a digital recorder, and Nora just kind of goes by whatever she feels. And that's just kind of how it goes. So, it depends on what you have as far as equipment goes. But regardless of whether you have a gazillion cameras or, just a few, the one thing that I would definitely say to you is to, whether it's from doing investigations in the beginning and kind of learning where things take place, or it's by listening to the history of what people have experienced there, that should tell you where to set up your equipment. A good example is, we know that there's a particular part in the old gas company that we used to investigate semi-regularly that we call Shadow Alley. And we call it that because all the shadow figures that go back and forth across the hallway. So we know that setting up an infrared camera there is a really good idea. At the same time, we know that we get a bunch of voices in the little cafeteria area, so setting a digital recorder or another audio device there that records is also a pretty good idea. And this is the stuff you won't want to have in mind when you go to a place, especially if it's a place you go to with any regularity. I understand that a lot of teams don't have regular spots, and so they'll have to learn this same kind of information from the people that have had experiences there. Where people experience things, and where have most of these experiences taken place, that kind of thing. And so that should always dictate where your equipment goes. Because if you just set it up, at random, chances are you're going to miss some stuff. And then you will have pretty much nothing to show for your hard work. Okay, now Jeremy's question. He asked, Jay, do you have a ritual you use for entering and leaving a building, a set of prayers for protection? What do you and your team do? Well, we don't have really anything that we do unless something happens. Uh, like we don't have anything that we do personally that's like proactive or anything. Um, but if somebody's attacked or dark negative spirit is messing with somebody on my team, yes, there is actually a prayer. It's the same prayer that I say when I'm cleansing a house. It's Uniqua. Uniqua is the Cherokee word of the Creator, the Great Spirit. Uniqua, grant us your blessings and protect us from evil. And I say that over and over again until said negative entity leaves. And if that doesn't work, I kind of kick its ass, so to speak, and by using the force basically of my own energy, and it's not something anybody can do. It's kind of a natural ability in me, but like even so, I still had to be taught how to use it. And it's not to make myself sound like a superhero or anything like that. It's just that certain people are born with certain gifts, and that just happens to be one of mine. And yeah, so it isn't a bad idea to have a particular set of prayers for protection or what have you. The one thing I do personally is I have a medicine bag, and inside that medicine bag, among herbs and other stuff, is a piece of stone called blue apatite, which is really good for protection. And I never investigate without my medicine bag, and I never investigate without wearing my moccasins, because that's my power comes from the earth, and I want to be as close to the earth as I possibly can and be grounded. And I find that moccasins, for me, make it very easy to do so. But that's me personally. People differ, and it depends on what you believe in. But there is absolutely nothing wrong with saying a prayer before and after you leave an investigation. In fact, for most people, I would highly recommend it. It's just, for whatever reason, we just don't do that. Unless the situation calls for it. Because we never go into a situation expecting negative. And therefore, we rarely ever do. Because that's the thing about the paranormal world. If you're expecting negative, that's what you're going to find. If you're expecting positive, that's what you're going to find. But if you're just kind of open to whatever's there, oftentimes you're surprised, and you find you will find a negative stuff on occasion, but you'll find much more positive than you ever dreamed of. And that's something I've always said about closed-minded people and people that only see the negative, that I kind of pity them in a way. I mean, they piss me off, don't get me wrong, but I do kind of pity them because they're failing to realize exactly how beautiful the paranormal world actually is. Now, I have the benefit of actually seeing it. I physically see it, so I know how beautiful it is, and I know how ugly it can be. And, it's hard for me sometimes to just be objective about it when I hear somebody saying, well, it's all negative. It really is. But all I can really say is, people are different. I don't agree with them. I would never investigate with somebody like that. But people are different. But I will say that whatever it is that you believe in, there's absolutely nothing wrong with holding on to that uh, while you investigate, or saying a prayer before and after. Um, it would be highly recommended, and it just depends on what you believe in. And so if you're like Catholic, you might want to say, I don't know, whatever Catholics say, or a Christian, you might want to say Lord's Prayer or something before and after, or whatever it is, uh, and it just depends what you believe. I don't think there's actually any wrong way of protecting yourself, really. So I hope that answers your question. Anyways, so yeah, this is just stuff to keep in mind. And you don't have to agree with me. I'm not expecting everybody out there to agree with me. In fact, I know a lot of people don't, because they're so set in their ways. And fine, I'm not at all concerned with convincing people that don't have a fucking clue in the first place. I'm more concerned with sharing wisdom or teaching people that are curious about it, maybe, or open to other viewpoints. That I don't have a problem with, but I do have a problem with people, asking me, well, how do you do this? But they're all condescending about it. Like this one guy that was to the Paranormal Gathering. I'm sure he's a very nice guy. He just rubbed me the wrong way, because he was saying every spirit is negative, because if they're here, that means they're trapped, which is absolute bullshit, by the way. We don't lose free will just because we die. First of all, that's one thing I can tell you with absolute certainty. Whether you agree with that, or want to believe something different, is on you. But that's one thing I know in my heart and my mind for an absolute certainty, is that we don't lose free will just because we die. And in fact, in my experience, most spirits are here simply because they choose to be, not because they're trapped. That's not to say there aren't such things as trapped spirits. There are. I have experienced a few of those too. But by and large, they're here because they choose to be. And if you think about it, it makes a lot of sense. Where would you rather be? In some, alternate plane that is probably going to bore you to tears? Or in the place where you felt love and happiness? Where you enjoyed the freedoms of life? So choice has everything to do with the paranormal. But anyways, so yeah, I do have a very hard time with more closed-minded perspectives, and one of my favorite sayings is actually a little-known saying by Albert Einstein: "Fear nothing but a closed mind." And that's how I live my life. I don't fear anything. I fear closed-minded people. I'm not afraid of them personally, but I do fear that kind of viewpoint, because they're so convinced of their own rightness that anything else just has no room. Okay, so anyways, another thing that people, a lot of investigators and a lot of investigative teams seem to fail at this, even those that have been on TV shows. Ghost Adventures fails at this shit all the time, and they're one of my favorites. I think they're as close to the real deal is you're probably going to find on TV. That's my honest opinion. Um, but even they're bad at this. They never take into account the spirit that they're dealing with. And what I mean by that is like if I'm dealing with a potential child spirit, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to approach that spirit as if they are a child. What Ghost Adventures does is, oh, well, child spirits wouldn't be here. It must be a demon in disguise. I don't believe that bullshit for a minute. I think demons probably could do that. Doesn't mean that they do. I think, in my experience, I have dealt with demons before, by the way. In my experience, demons are a lot more straightforward about shit. They're not interested in tricking you. They can. They will, on occasion, use deceit and trickery to achieve an end. But when you're dealing with the paranormal, they are not interested in tricking you at all. They would much rather you immediately be afraid of them. And the way to do that is for them to be themselves, so to speak. So they are not absolutely not interested in fooling you. It achieves no purpose. And they say, well, it's so that you'll open up and get closer to them. They don't have to get closer to you. They really don't. All they have to do is exploit your own weaknesses against you. And they don't need to trick you in order to do that. But you know, that's just kind of an example of what I'm talking about. If it's a child, I'm going to deal with it like it's a child. If it's, like the way I deal with Donnie, which is one of the regular spirits we interact with at the Mansfield Farm Museum, because he was a soldier in the Korean War, the way I approach him is like a fellow soldier because I was. And I kind of speak the same language, so to speak, and we can relate on that level. If I'm talking to a prisoner at the reformatory, the reason why we got evidence there when nobody else was because we didn't provoke. And in fact, the first thing I said was, look, as far as I'm concerned, you did your time. I'm not here to berate you or to talk down to you. I'm just here to communicate with you. And boom, immediately when I said that, shit started happening. We got great EVPs and great stuff on video and the whole nine. So I think approach has everything to do with it. And I think anybody approaching shit like you have to provoke is a mistake. I think the only time that provoking should be, okay in my book is if you know for a fact you're dealing with something dark. You're dealing with something evil or demonic. Because provoking is the best thing to do in those circumstances, believe it or not, because what it does is it shows that entity that you are not afraid of it. And that's what they want. They want your fear because that's what they feed on. and to put it like the way they used to put it back in the 1800s, there's just no back down in me. And it's absolutely true. I don't think there's enough people like that, to be honest, in the world anymore. I think there are too many people that back down on shit. And dealing with the paranormal is absolutely the last place you want to have any back down in you. And what I mean by that is you're dealing with something aggressive or negative, and you go, okay, I'll leave you alone now, or whatever, and you kind of try and placate it. That shit doesn't work. I think once, to put it kind of another way, I think it was, I forget who said it. I think it might have been Benjamin Franklin who said that, or it was Thomas Jefferson, one of those guys, said that all it takes for evil to prevail is for good men to do nothing. And I think it's kind of a similar situation here, because too many otherwise good people just kind of back down when faced with the negative. And I don't think I have it in me to back down from anything, to be honest. And that's me. That's just me. So, you know. But to kind of soldier on, so to speak, I think approach is very important. And I think if more people thought about it, they would realize that provoking really is not necessary at all. I think if they were armed with enough historical data and enough information personally about who they're probably dealing with, you would never need to provoke. And you would probably get better evidence that way too. I believe we have. I believe we've actually captured evidence that if the rest of the world would take notice of it, would the paranormal world would explode. I mean, it would. It would be like, holy crap. Because pretty much everything we've ever caught is relative to either what is going on now or what has already happened. And I honestly don't know of many other teams that can lay that claim to fame. And so I do think approach has a lot to do with it. I think style has a lot to do with it too, actually. Because I think if you are only scientific about it, you're going to miss a lot. I think that if you're only sensitive about it, you're going to miss a lot. I think if you combine history, science, and sensitivity, you're going to get everything you ever need as far as, evidence goes. Well, first of all, I don't even call it evidence. To me, it's proof, because I have no interest in convincing closed-minded people. I have no interest in convincing the world, really. I just want to satisfy myself, and therefore, to me, it's proof, not evidence. But, that's tomato, whatever. People are free to call it whatever they want. But it all amounts pretty much to the same thing. And, there are so many things that happen on a lot of these teams that just frustrates the shit out of me. Because there's some where like Ghost Hunters, and this is the part you never see on the TV show, but Jason Hawes is kind of a douche, and he's kind of a slave driver. You know, he really is, and I don't agree with that, leadership tactic at all. I think it's absolutely unnecessary. Um, there's nothing wrong with having, a vision for your team. But, don't expect everybody to immediately conform to what your vision is. Because everybody's different. And it's been pretty good on my team because, pretty much all of us, we kind of share the same vision, sort of. There might be little differences here and there, but like for the most part, we all want to eventually be on TV, but we want to do it under our own terms. We want to do it so that like if we're ever put on TV, I can promise you two things: it's going to be under our own terms, and it's going to be a real show. And what I mean by that is like we're going to have creative control of anything we do, TV related. And we're not going to hand things up for ratings. We're not going to pander. What you see is what you get. And that's just kind of our viewpoint on that. And so, because of that, chances of us ever getting a TV show are probably slim. But, there's also a reason why I have been interviewed now 3 separate times for documentaries. Because I have very definitive views of the paranormal. I like to talk about it. And I don't really give a shit what anybody else thinks. I mean, I love the people on my show. And I know for the most part, the people on my show agree with me on a lot of stuff. Probably not on everything, but on a lot of stuff. And that's probably why they keep listening. But I don't think that I really give a damn if the greater world at large agrees or not. Because it's not my concern whether they agree or not. Because as far as I can tell, and this may seem like narcissistic or egotistic or what have you, but in my viewpoint, if people don't agree with me, at least when it comes to the big important things, if they don't agree with me, then they're not worth my time. And I gotta say, and this isn't just me, being boastful or flattering or whatever you want to call it. This is the God's honest truth. I honestly believe that I have the best fucking team on the planet, bar none. Ghost Adventures is good, but they've got shit on us. That's the absolute truth. They have nothing on us. Ghost Hunters has nothing on us. No team that has ever been on TV has anything on us because we have gotten evidence just being ourselves that they have never once gotten pandering to people that watch their show. And I think that speaks fucking volumes. And yeah, I know I'm cussing, but If you don't know I cuss by now, then sorry. Okay, folks, we're down to like the last 3 minutes. So what I want to do now is open the floor for any further questions. If anybody's got questions, message me on Facebook or in our chat at ghostwolfpara.weebly.com/live TAC streaming, TAC radio, TAC and TAC web series. Or just go to ghostwolfpara.weebly.com and look for the live streaming radio and web series section. And enter the chat room there. So if anybody has any questions, that's cool. If not, that's cool too. I try and be good about answering people's questions, but let's see. Also, to kind of answer Jeremy's question from earlier about do I have a particular ritual for entering and leaving a building and a set of prayers for protection? Well, yeah, I kind of do, but it's used more for house cleansing, really. Uniqua, grant us your blessings and protect us from all evil. And I also use sage to cleanse the home and salt to seal it. I'll put salt around all the openings, windows, and doors into the home. And I've done that over 430 times, and in that entire time, I've received one callback that I don't even really count as a callback, because what I think happened is that the negative spirit in question was kind of like possessing one of the children in the home, and therefore escaped my wrath, so to speak. And all that, and then I suggested that I left them with white sage to burn. And I suggested that she burn the sage every single day until it's gone, basically. And I haven't heard back from them since. So I'm assuming that worked. And therefore don't really consider it a callback. Because a callback to me is when they call and then I have to return and redo everything. And I've never had to do that. But yeah. All right, that's about it, folks. Thank you all for tuning in. Tune in Wednesday night at 8 for our next show, which I don't exactly know what it's going to be yet, but it'll be good. And until next time, my pack, my tribe, peace out.